In this episode of Growing Your Sense of Self Through Self-Defense, I'm going to talk about the use of emotionally charged words and words with strong connotations in trying to influence someone's beliefs or opinions. Now, in episode C-16, I talked about the two uses of language. Language that is, as is generally understood, to convey thoughts and data and reality and reason. And then the other use that is to make emotional connections or disconnections. And they both have their place. The problem with communication happens when a person thinks it's being used in one way and it's being used in another. And in particular, the use of language to make emotional connections or disconnections when the expectation and the environment is such that it would be thought to be used to convey data and facts and reason. So use of emotionally laden words or connotations to try to influence one, when one's trying to use language or expected to be using language to convey facts, data, thoughts, reality, is not appropriate. Those words can be used to drive home a point if the proper groundwork is laid. I'll give an example in a bit. So let's think of here's three ways you can say basically the same thing. And they have different levels of connotations. So one would be, I think what he said is not correct. Another one would be, he's wrong. And the third one would be, he lied. Now, in all three cases, we're trying to get across the point that another person stated something that was untrue. And in the first case, which is, I would say, the highest integrity, the most honesty, is I think what he said is incorrect. So I'm giving my impression of what this other person said and its correlation with reality, external reality or truth. But that has at least emotional connotations associated with it, emotionally charged. Because it's like, well, all right, that's your belief, it's your opinion. He's got his own, so as he said, who do I believe in? Is it based on how much I trust you generally versus this guy? Well, you would have to follow it with data and say, this is why I think what he said is incorrect. Now, the second case where he's wrong, now, let's assume you follow that with data too and indicate, well, here's what the reality is, and we can all agree on that, and therefore he said this, so therefore he's wrong. But to say he's wrong, right and wrong carry a moral connotation. Right? If I say correct or incorrect, that's just, there's not that type of value associated with it. It is an accuracy statement, correct or incorrect. Right or wrong, there's a moral component to that, implicit in that. So I say he's wrong, I'm not only saying he's incorrect, that there's something somehow negative about the person. It's a subtlety, but there's a charge associated with being wrong versus being incorrect. The third one, to say somebody lied, that's almost something you can never accurately state. Because a person tells a falsehood doesn't mean they lied. I mean, there's three components to lying. First is what you state is not accurate. It is a falsehood. But second is you have to know that it's a falsehood, right? If I thought the world was flat and I was telling people the world was flat, I'm not lying. I'm inaccurate, I'm giving falsehoods, but I'm not lying. That's what my belief is. Then the third piece, in order to lie, you have to know the thing is false. You have to state a falsehood, know that it's false, or strongly believe that it's false, and intend to deceive. So all three componentries have to be, you have to not only know that something is inaccurate, but you have to know what I know or believe in terms of truth value of that. And then the third thing, you have to know my intention. Did I try to deceive or not? So those latter two are almost impossible to know. So to say, to call somebody a liar, it's almost never accurate. You can say that they're spreading falsehoods, they're saying things that aren't true, they should know they're true, but you can't know that they're lying. That's almost impossible to state. But it's a very emotionally charged word. To say somebody's lying, that's always negative connotation. To say they're wrong, people might, okay, I'm not taking a moral component part of it, they're just going to take it as incorrect. But there is a little moral piece in there, whether or not you're going to be conscious about it, it sort of slips in. But lying, there's no slipping. That's a direct affront to the person, a direct slam at the person. And it's almost impossible to say that it's accurate. Here's another example. A song comes on, and I say, ugh, well, this song's terrible. And somebody, oh, this song is great. Well, all right, is the song great or terrible? Well, you say, well, that's a judgment thing. Well, all right, two different people are saying the same thing. The point of it is, implicit in any statement I make is an I think that. And we go around and say anytime we're making a statement about something, we should say, I think that, blah, blah, blah. But we save the time by not saying those three words. But this is always implicit. So when I make a statement about a song, maybe you never heard it, and say, well, this song by this group, that song is terrible. No, it really is my perception of that song. I may not be right, or it may not be right for you. You might end up liking that song, thinking that song is great. So my statements about external reality are really my statements about my perceptions about external reality. And they may not be accurate. So because I say X is the case, it's really, I think that X is the case. Same thing for when you say it. When you say this is so, it don't mean that's so. It just means your impression is, your belief is, your perception is that that is so. So what that enables others to do, on every statement you make, every statement anyone makes, this enables others to pass judgment on your judgment. Remember, passing judgments are good things. They're necessary things, therefore they're good things. It's part of life, is passing judgments. So be clear when you're passing a judgment that that's all that it is. It's your perception of a reality, of a fact, of a data. It may not be accurate. There's very little we actually know. Most of the things are our opinions and beliefs. And the stronger our sense of self, the more we are allowing ourselves to reach into reality, external reality. We're not self-absorbed. We're not protective of our own inner reality, however wretched it may be. But we're open to possibilities and unpleasant realities and say, okay, well, I can adapt to unpleasant realities. But it is a reality. It's an external reality, and I accept that. So the stronger the sense of self, the more attuned one can be with external reality. Therefore, the more trustworthy one becomes. And if you remember the traits of a person with a high sense of self, one of the characteristics is they're trustworthy. Because they're accepting of external reality. That's one of the ways of being trustworthy. They can then express that to others. They're not trying to hide things. They're not looking within, self-absorbed, and looking at their own internal world, distinctly different from external reality. Another plus, as I say, it covers all aspects of life. The strength of the sense of self enriches all aspects of your life. So I'd like to suggest two exercises in this area. There's or two parts of one exercise. One is when you make statements that include emotionally charged words, or strong words with strong connotations, or phrases with strong connotations, to back it up with data. So I say, hey, that guy's a jerk. Okay, he may be. It's my perception that the guy's a jerk. But I back it up with data. You know, he's done this, he's cheated on his wife, he's done that, blah, 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 blah. Then you hear those things, and assuming they're true, if you trust my judgment on those things. Okay, I agree, that guy's a jerk for that list of things. Not because you said he's a jerk, but because he has this history. So you have the opportunity, anytime you're using emotionally charged words, and they're not necessarily to be avoided, they're to drive home the point that has been laid with data. You can drive home the point first and back it up with data, or lay the data and then drive home the point. So emotionally charged words are not to be avoided, but they need to be substantiated when they're being used. The second part of the exercise is to catch others who are using emotionally charged words, or strong connotations, and press them on, did you lay the groundwork, or can you lay the groundwork for using that term? So you can do that if you're having an interaction with a person, and you're standing there talking to me and say, see that guy, he's a jerk. You can come back and say, well, why do you think he's a jerk? If I didn't come up and offer you all of these reasons why I thought he was a jerk, you can ask for him. If you thought it was important, you say, so what, I don't care what he thinks about him. But there's other cases where you cannot. And these are cases where you see somebody on TV, or hear somebody on the radio, or read something someplace online in a paper or magazine or book. And they use words that are emotionally charged or a strong connotation. If they don't lay the groundwork, so these are tip-offs. So if you don't lay the groundwork and you use those words, and there's not somebody right there to help sort of challenge it. If you did challenge me and I couldn't give you a reason why he's a jerk because he's a jerk, okay, that's a statement, real strong statement about me and my integrity. Having that strong opinion and either not being open or being unable to give the reasons for it. This is how you can see through somebody. This is the X-ray vision. This as an exposing of myself and my sense of self. I gave a statement, I couldn't back it up, or I was refusing to back it up, but I gave a strong, very strong statement about somebody else. That's a strong statement about me, and it speaks to my integrity, and it speaks to the strength of my sense of self more than anything else. So that happens a lot in conversations, but you have the opportunity to press on it. And I suggest as part of the exercise, you do that. And you take the responsibility and have the integrity to lay the groundwork when you make those statements. Now, when you read about it someplace else or hear about it someplace else where it's unidirectional, if the person didn't lay the groundwork and they're using these charged words and these strong connotations, liar this or cheating that or whatever the heck they're using, and didn't lay the groundwork with data and facts to justify use of those kinds of words, their lack of integrity is even stronger because you don't have an opportunity to press them on it. If I'm standing here telling you something, you can press me back. Challenge me. Question my judgment. If they're on someplace else in TV or writing in a book or something like this here or in a paper, online, you don't have that opportunity. So they have greater responsibility to lay the groundwork, to watch the use of the emotionally charged words, the strong connotation words. If they're using those without having laid proper groundwork, that's a problem. That's an integrity problem. That speaks to their sense of self. If they lay the groundwork, but you're looking at the groundwork and say, that's bogus. That's not what happened. That's not the case. I know what the case is, or at least I believe I know what the case is, and it ain't what you're saying. That's a double whammy. That they're both saying something that, in your opinion, is not true, and then they're using that, what you believe to be a falsehood, to justify use of some emotionally charged words and strong connotation. That's a double sign of low integrity. Now, of course, your judgment could be wrong, so you have to allow that possibility. But if you are pretty confident in it, then who's ever making these kind of claims, even if you end up saying, well, I kind of like where he was going with it, but he didn't lay the right groundwork, and the reason he gave was poor, and then he jumped to that. Yeah, I would have liked him jumping there, but if you don't get there fair, that's a problem on you. Poor groundwork, jump into a claim that's not justified. So whether or not I sort of would like to use that word and agree with that word and can find uses for it, I don't like the way you got there. That's a poor integrity. That's a problem with you, from my perspective. So I know in these videos it's sort of unidirectional, right? You have the opportunity to post comments or send me emails or whatever it is, and I appreciate that if you do. Challenge them, question them, and if I don't, my goal would be to come back with you if somehow I don't rattle my cage again, if I didn't see it the first time. And I'll come back, we'll try to come back and lay the case for whatever claim I'm making, if I'm using emotionally charged words or strong connotations. I'll lay the case for that. Or even if I'm not using such words, but you don't necessarily agree or understand what it is I'm saying or doing in the physical episodes, then I encourage you either to challenge me or ask for clarification. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for me. It's a good thing for the program, which means not only for you, if I'm answering a question, but for others who might have the same question. So I ask you to help me make the program stronger, and you do that by seeing places where it can be improved and raising those to me for a chance to improve them. Thank you for your help in that. Thank you for your time. Kamsahamnida. Toodles.